because all it is confused mind means no, right? Before. So go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah. So what I started to do is, I teach creative real estate financing, lease options subject to wraps, land contracts. And the biggest challenge that investors have is dealing with professionals, brokers. So the listing broker or the buyer's broker, just getting them on board and to understand what's involved in the transaction. So I started training brokers on, hey, you got to know this because competition is stiff for the low inventory there is. And if you want more listings, more buyers, and more closings, you've got to learn how to adapt to the environment. And in 2021, creative financing is it.
That's sharp, Bill.
Yeah.
When did you hit that? I feel like you are fighting an uphill battle with that, with the brokers knowing the business,
Right.
I guess what the business.
I thought that was what it would be at first. I get a lot of resistance, but I'm not.
Oh, really?
A lot of brokers are saying this is great stuff. I know about it, but I don't know the nuts and bolts. Teach me how to do these transactions and how to cover my butt so I don't get in trouble.
I like that. I didn't know that, Bill. I thought okay, we both thought the same thing. Interesting. I don't know why a lot of them fight it. In my area too, is like
the ones that have been around for a while, like that were still brokers in the 80s when it was popular to do wraps. Mm-hmm. They're like, wow, we used to do these all the time. I'm so glad someone brought it back.
Okay.
And what I thought I was going to get was, you can't do that. My broker says that's illegal. The state real estate board says you shouldn't do it. The realtors commission said I shouldn't do that. But I didn't get into that.
Wow. Nice little niche or niche.
Yeah.
Come on in, Roundup family. The final day of the year. New Year's resolutions, Bill?
New Year's resolutions. I got some big ones. First of all, I don't care what's going on with COVID. I'm getting back to doing live seminars, however it can be done. Even if I have to do them in Florida or Texas where the things are open, I just can't stand, as much as this is fun, this platform and the Zoom and all that, it's not the same. It's not the same as a live audience. I just taught, I teach as an adjunct professor at a big Bible college here in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And so their business school, they wanted someone to teach real estate and business entities. And I taught 2 days in a row, 2 classes for 4 hours with 40 people. And it was like, I missed this so much. Real room, raising their hands, asking questions, giving you 100% of their attention, not half watching on Zoom and half doing something else,
The 4 walls.
Yeah.
I miss it too, man. I'm like, I thrive on that.
Great. I mean, doing webinars and workshops and events like this is great. I mean, it's a great way to reach people. It's a great way to adapt, but it doesn't replace the relationship you have with people at a live event,
Yeah. The 4 walls, brother. Dan Kennedy talks about the 4 walls.
Yeah.
You're right, Bill. I miss it so dearly. I live on that. It gives me energy of meeting people and all this stuff.
Right.
Well, that's cool. You're going to do it. I can't wait to come to one of those.
Do it, and I'm going to launch it big, probably spring of 2021. I don't care.
So we're putting something together, too, for next year. Would you be willing to come speak at our event also?
If it's open.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You can do it. Yeah. Where is it going to be?
And nothing's put together yet. My team, we've been talking about it. So
yeah, do it like Orlando, because Florida is open, and Orlando is an easy destination to get into.
That's true.
People, of course, just don't do it in March in the middle of spring break. That's the difficult time. But if you do it between, either February or maybe like April, things will calm down a little bit. And Orlando's a good destination for everybody around the country. It's easy to get to.
Cheap, too. Cheap to get there.
It's cheap to stay there, cheap to get there. And people like having a destination thing where they can stay a few extra days and, talk their family into coming.
Roundup, thank you for joining us. We got my friend, attorney Bill Bronchick, and real estate investor and landlord, and a bunch of million other things that he does today to share with us creative financing, my favorite part of the business, subject to lease options, wrap mortgages, which is hot topic right now. Ron LeGrand is always looking down on us sub 2 guys. land contracts.
Right.
And we're going to put some links in the video description. And we're going to give you some stuff for free. And Bill's going to give us a New Year's Eve and day special. Thank you, Bill Bronchick. What's up?
Everything's up, man. It's an exciting time to be in business and real estate. I think we're going to see a tremendous amount of opportunity after this foreclosure moratorium, which is going to end now, was going to end the end of this year. They just extended it to the end of January with the new COVID bill. But after that, it's pretty much up for people who haven't been making payments for almost a year. They either have to get into a forbearance, which is very difficult, as you know, to get into a forbearance and put all the payments on the back of the loan and then pay going forward, because you have to show you're gainfully employed. You can make the payment and you can make an additional payment towards the back payments each month. And not many people can do that. So I think a lot of people are just going to end up walking.
That's what I'm thinking.
And that's the opportunity we see for helping people out with taking property subject to, making up their back payments, and then taking it out of foreclosure.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Bill, you've been around longer than me, since the 90s, investing in real estate. How do you see this thing cleaning itself up? Because it will clean itself up.
Right. Well, I think it's all going to depend on, we still have low inventory almost everywhere. So demand exceeds supply in almost every major city. That means prices will stay stable, if not rise. If inventory rises, which would only happen if banks did a massive foreclosures, and they probably won't come around until 2022. By the time they're done foreclosing and getting it back and getting rid of the tenant, cleaning it up, putting it back for sale. The question is, are they going to flood the market with this inventory, which is going to be significant, or are they going to dribble them out slowly like they did in 2010 and prop the prices up by keeping inventory low? Man. I think it's going to be the latter.
That's what they did before, right?
Yeah.
So are you going to court at all, Bill, right now?
Courts are closed.
Huh?
Courts are closed.
In Denver? In Colorado?
No, you can't do an eviction.
Wow.
Can't do an eviction. You can't do a foreclosure. The only thing the courts are open for is, criminal cases, domestic disputes, and things like that.
That's crazy. Well, now we're still in court out here. They got all the tenants are bringing in that document from the CDC.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. I got served with one of those. Get this. I got served with one in October, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm sucking it up with no rent on that property till January. And a month later, he dies.
Oh, shit.
I don't know if it was from COVID, but he was alone, had no family. And my property manager was like, we're not sure what to do because he has no heirs, no family. And we're talking to the VA because he was a vet and see what to do with the stuff.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, this is like, do I feel happy or guilty or sad or relieved? I'm
terrible.
I'm conflicted. It's terrible, of course, that the guy died. But that gets me. I guess it gets me the unit back faster.
Yeah. Wow. People. Wow. Sheesh. So today, get your questions in. Subject to, I want to just cover all this stuff very quickly, and I see questions coming in already. Bill, you're going to give us the New Year's special, everything, all of your training that's going to be in the video description below. Subject to, Bill, let's start with that. Then we'll go down the line and kind of cover it real quickly.
Yeah. So buying subject to means buying a property from a seller without paying off or assuming the existing mortgage. At closing, typically the buyer comes in with money, whether it be cash or a new loan from another bank. And at closing, the seller is going to use those proceeds for the underlying loan and then deed you the property so you can put a new lien against it. A subject to we're going to do is take title subject to the existing mortgage, meaning not pay it off. And we're not going to call the bank and assume it either. Assume is when you qualify as the buyer to take over the loan and take the seller off the hook for that loan. We're not doing that. The seller's still technically on the hook, but we're owning the property title in terms of the deed to the property, but we're paying the mortgage that's not in our name. Yeah. Remember, a mortgage is two things. It's a note and a security instrument, a mortgage or deed of trust. So the note was signed by the former owner to the bank. He's obligated, not me. But if I don't pay the payments, the bank will foreclose under their security instrument. So we're taking subject to We're going to make the payments. We can rent it out. We can renovate it and sell it. We could turn around and sell it on a lease option.
Move into it.
Wrap. We can move into it. There's so many things you can do. My first house I bought that way. Actually, it wasn't my first house. My first residence. I bought several rental properties before I bought a personal residence.
Wow.
And when I bought my first personal residence, someone made me a creative offer, and I took their property subject to, moved into it. I gave her $5,000 down and took over the payments.
Sweet. Well, so much stuff I can ask you. Tell me about the people that are willing to let you buy their house and keep the loan in their name, Bill. I just want to know. People just can't believe that. Can that really happen? Because I live in a subject to house too.
Anything we're doing here takes a motivated seller. And a motivated seller isn't someone with a problem property. They're a problem ownership of that property. They can't deal with it mentally, not financially in most cases. So if a house has a problem, there's an easy fix. So if you have a tenant who isn't paying rent, then evict them. If you have a house that needs work, then fix it. If you have a divorce and you have to put the property on the market, then let's go with an agent and sell it. I mean, there's things you can do to fix problems, but the seller who's motivated is just checked out mentally on this problem. And he's putting his head in the sand and doesn't want to deal with it. And it's going to have bad repercussions for him because in many times, if the house gets foreclosed, the seller's going to ruin their credit, number one. And number two, they could have a deficiency where the bank comes after them for the balance between what it sold for at auction and what they owed. So not good. If we come along and say, don't walk away from your mortgage, don't ignore the problem, deed it over to me, I'll make up the back payments that you're behind, and I'll continue making it forward, and that'll improve your credit because you went from 90 days late to current.
Nice. So you're actually helping the seller out.
Yeah. And he can move on and maybe in the future buy a new house because he doesn't have a foreclosure on his record.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bill, I want to say that this is my favorite way to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, what is your favorite way to buy?
Subject to.
Wow.
That's the best way to do it. Just buy subject to. And I like selling it on a wrap.
Let's go to that. All right.
So a wrap is a subject to. So same scenario. Seller wants to sell it. He's 3 payments behind. He's got a low payment mortgage. Doesn't have a lot of equity. Maybe I give him a few grand at closing for walking money. And I'm going to take title to the property subject to the existing loan. But on a wrap, I'm going to give the seller a note for the balance of the purchase price, which will be secured by a second lien against the property, either a deed of trust or mortgage that's all inclusive. Meaning, if he owes 100 and I give him a wrap note for 100 and maybe a little cash, there's not 200,000 in liens on the property. There's 100. The underlying lien, the first, is all inclusive of the second.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about an all-inclusive trust deed or an all-inclusive wraparound mortgage, what we're saying is I'm paying the seller, he's paying his underlying loan, and if there's any difference, he keeps the monthly. But usually when we buy, it's what we call a mirror wrap, where you're just mirroring what's there. So in terms of the difference between buying on a wrap and buying on a subject to, the only difference is the seller gets a lien on a wrap. So if I don't pay the payments, he can foreclose and get the property back. Whereas a straight subject to, he's just giving away title with no recourse.
Y'all getting that? That's like the big thing nowadays in our industry. People are just kind of getting squeamish about subject to.
Right.
So the wraparound mortgage, does that make, I'm just like, do the sellers even care, or is it something that we put in place?
Well, usually when I represent a lot of real estate brokers, I suggest it because it's a little more fair. Like subject to is very pro buyer.
One-sided.
Right. Lease option is more pro, I think, landlord seller.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a wraparound is sort of in the middle. You're giving the buyer title, but you have a method of getting the property back if the buyer defaults. Now, Some people prefer it that way. A lot of lawyer colleagues of mine say, no, I want to give them a recourse, so they have some reason. The challenge is in my state and many other states, in order to release that lien, let's say I go to sell the property and this wraparound lien is still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Colorado, you have to present the original note and the original deed of trust to the trustee to get it released.
Wet signatures?
Wet signatures, originals. Now they look at it, they confirm it, and then they give it back to you. But it's an archaic process that's required. So let's say I go to resell the property I took subject to, and I gave the seller a wraparound mortgage, and I asked him for it, and he lost it.
Yeah.
He lost the note, he lost the mortgage, he lost it all. Or he's disappeared and I can't find him. How am I going to get rid of that lien on the property?
That's nasty.
And I think that's more likely a scenario than me defaulting and him having to foreclose. Because frankly, if I can't make a payment, I'm only doing this once, where I had a property I took subject to and I just didn't like the deal anymore. So I just gave it back to him.
Just give it back.
Yeah, I just deeded it back to him. And that was the right thing to do. And he was thankful about it.
Yeah. So either way, we're taking over. I know people are just, they're going to want to know, what's the difference? Should I buy a subject to wrap note? It's almost like a hybrid of subject to. You're still taking over the debt.
You're still taking over subject to. It's the same thing. You're just giving a seller a lien. So, and I think basically a wrap is harder to explain to a seller.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell?
With real estate brokers involved and title companies involved who are representing parties, I suggest the wrap because title companies, attorneys, brokers have heard the word wrap. They have a vague idea of what that is. When you say subject to, they go, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
So preferably, I'll just do a straight subject to. Second choice would be a wrap. Third choice would be to buy on a land contract. And fourth would be to buy on a lease option.
Let's go ahead and hit it. Rent land contracts. And then round up, if you look in the video description below, you can have Bill's land contract and his wrap note for absolutely free, no charge. All you gotta do is opt in. That link is in the video description along with the other goodies for New Year's Bill's special. Hit it, Bill.
Thank you. So a land contract is an owner carry sale. It's a wrap in that there's an underlying loan that doesn't get paid off, but the title to the property does not pass to the buyer at the time of sale. It stays the seller's name, and there's a land contract that's signed between them, sort of like a car loan scenario where you make payments on a car loan, and then when you're done paying, you get the title.
Mm-hmm.
The title remains in the seller's name, but the buyer, for all intents and purposes, is the owner. He just doesn't have title yet until he sells or refinances or otherwise pays off the debt. Now, in that scenario, a wrap, it's just as much a wrap as a regular wraparound mortgage. It's just that it favors if you're selling, you probably want to use a land contract when you're selling.
Gotcha.
Because it gives you more control because you have the deed to the property. The only time you can do it is Texas. If you're in Texas watching this, you can't really use a land contract to sell to a buyer who's going to live there. They've made the regulations too difficult to work with. So you'd buy on a wrap and sell on a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
And the good news is, the bad news is you have to foreclose if your buyer doesn't pay. But the foreclosure process in Texas is 21 days.
Wow.
So it's not that big of a deal. In another state like Florida, it's not very good because it's judicial foreclosure and it can take 6 to 9 months.
Wow.
That's if you can't convince the buyer to leave with a little bribery of cash, right? Little cash for keys scenario.
I always choose that route.
Yeah, that's the smartest and most efficient way to do it.
A few dollars.
Now, I could buy on a land contract. I've done it. It's just that there's some dangers to it because if the seller gets any liens on the property in between the time we sign the land contract and he actually delivers title, that impedes his ability to give me, clear title at the end. Also, if the seller files for bankruptcy, the land contract is terminable at the discretion of the bankruptcy trustee. So he could just say, I don't like this contract and I'm canceling it.
Wow.
That doesn't happen that often, especially if there's not much equity. I can convince the bankruptcy trustee most of the time to just deed me over the property and take it out of the bankruptcy. The last one is a lease with option, which is not a sale at all. It's not a wrap. It's a landlord-tenant relationship where the tenant has an option to buy at agreed upon terms and price. Okay. When you are buying, that's the weakest position you can be in because you don't have equitable or legal ownership. You're just a tenant with an option that you have to exercise to do anything with. When you're selling, it's good because you're in full control, because if the tenant/buyer doesn't pay, you can evict them.
Mm-hmm. Well, now on the land contract, Bill, how do we get the tenant out everywhere but Texas? Because we didn't touch that. You're talking about eviction.
Here's the thing. Some states have specific what are called forfeiture provisions, which is a process that's a little more difficult and longer than an eviction, but considerably easier and cheaper than a foreclosure.
Gotcha.
So some states have forfeiture procedures. Like, for example, in Ohio and Iowa, they say once the guy defaults, you have to give him 30 or 60 days notice to bring it all up. And then if they don't, you can go through a forfeiture proceeding and go through an eviction. In my state of Colorado, there is no prescribed process. So what we do is my agreement says if the buyer defaults, then he becomes a holdover tenant, like a tenant who expired his lease, and then we go through an eviction. Now, in the eviction court, if he doesn't show up, which is more than likely, I'm going to get possession and I get the property and he'll leave. If they do show up and they argue this isn't a landlord-tenant, this was a sale, then landlord-tenant judge doesn't have the discretion to hear that claim. He's got to bounce it up to the higher court, and that could take another 2 months. Good. And usually this seller wins, but it's timely and expensive.
Yeah, you broke after you win. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I know here in VA, we do the land contracts are just straight to the eviction court and we're done.
Right. Well, that's fine. That's fine. And the good thing is if there's something worth fighting for, they're not going to fight unless there's something worth fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a 50 or 60,000 in equity in the deal and it costs you 10 grand to pay an attorney to fight, it's worth it, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're paying 10 to get 60 in equity back.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't mean to cut you off there. I wanted to make sure my rounduppers understand how we got to know how we don't buy how we sell. There's different ways to get in and out.
Typically, the buying pecking order is subject to wraparound, land contract, lease option.
On the buy.
On the buy. On the sell, I like lease option, land contract, depending on the value of the property and the numbers. Mm-hmm. Typically, when you sell lower end properties, lease option works better because you get more rent compared to value. Whereas higher end properties, I sell on land contract because you get more of a payment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Gotcha.
My last choice I'd ever do is do subject to a buyer.
Yeah, that'd be nasty.
That'd be, especially if it was my loan, I would never do that. But I might sell, like if I were in Texas, I might buy on a wraparound mortgage and then sell on a wraparound mortgage. Give them.
Gotcha. I can imagine selling subject to. I mean, I'll buy like that, but I'm like, I don't want any of the people under our voices here today to sell subject to, unless you have to. Unless you
have absolutely no choice.
Yeah, there's other ways around it.
Yeah.
So our lease option is my favorite way. This is how I disposed of my properties other than Section 8. I'm a big Section 8 guy. Haven't been having no problems with my rents bill. Do you do Section 8s too?
I have a few.
But lease option is my second other than.
Yeah, I like lease options too. On higher end homes, like let's look at some numbers. Let's say you had a $250,000 house. In your neighborhood, what would that rent for if it was in good shape?
$250, probably $1,800.
Okay, so $1,800. That's pretty good, right? So on a $200,000 house, let's say you took subject to a $170 mortgage,
mm-hmm.
and your payment PITI was $1,400, and you could rent it for $1,700.
Yep,
it's $300 a month cash flow. That's not bad. right? If I were to sell that on a land contract, let's say, for what did I say he owed?
170.
Let's say I sold it for 200 and I got 10 down and carried 190 of the balance on a wrap at 6%. If you look at the numbers there, it's almost a wash, in terms of, you might even do better on the lease option. But if you're talking about a $600,000 house, that's not going to rent for 2 or 3 times the amount. But if you sell it on a wrap, you're getting a bigger payment than you would for rent. Plus the buyer pays for taxes and insurance.
I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about land contracts, Bill. Did you mean
contract wrap?
Okay.
When I say wrap, it could be wrap around mortgage or wrap around land contract. They're both. The concept of wrap just means incoming loan, outgoing loan.
Gotcha. As opposed to rent.
Right.
So you're saying you can command more on the higher end houses because the buyer's thinking about mortgage, not rent.
Right. Well, on a sale on a land contract or a wrap, you can get definitely more down. Okay. And they're going to stay more likely than because lease option is more like try to buy.
Yeah.
Whereas the default rate on a land contract wrap, less than 10%, in my experience.
I got to tell you, Bill, I have up until now in my career, I have had no lease option tenants. I'm sorry. I had one.
One exercise?
Yeah, it was last year, 2 years ago.
Right. Well, there's a couple of factors I found that goes into that. One is the market. If you give them an option at 200 and the market goes up to 250, they're going to try to figure it out. The second thing is how much you push them. So if you just say, here's the documents and see you in a year when you want to buy it, they probably won't do anything. But if you call them every month and say, hey, did you see the mortgage broker? Have you talked to the credit repair guy I referred you to? Did you get this wrong thing on your credit report, fixed? If you push them, then the odds go way up.
I see. What do you do, Bill?
I push them.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. If there's a big back end spread.
So explain to my rounduppers, what do you mean by back end spread?
My option price from the owner.
Let's say it's at 170,
and then I was going to sell it to my tenant buyer for 200. That's 30 grand at the back end. Okay. Now, if I was making 200 a month, I'd rather have 30 grand. But if I'm making 450 a month, I don't think I'm going to rush for that tenant to buy.
I see. I'm the guy that gives them the keys and the documents and say, call me in 2 years or 3 years.
Right. Well, it depends what your goals are. If you're not really concerned about whether they buy it and the cash flow in the meantime and the appreciation of the property is worth it, and you get the depreciation write-off, then you're not in a rush. That's fine. And I don't think there's anything unethical or wrong about that. You're giving people an opportunity. It's like the gym, right? You have memberships, everyone signs up in January, and then by April, half the people crap out and don't show up. Is that unethical for a gym to sell a membership even though they know that 50% or more of the people won't show up?
I got to tell you, Bill, I went to the gym today. It was packed.
Me too. It was packed.
It was packed. I'm like, it's not even New Year's. Y'all slackers. Dude, I'm in there every day. So
yeah.
That's just cool stuff. Round up, we're hanging out with my friend, attorney Bill Bronchick. He's going to give us his New Year's Eve special in the video description. Also get all of his creative wrap, mortgage, land contract. That's all you have to do is you can get that for free in the link in the video description below as well. Thank you for hanging out with me, Bill.
Sure.
So we covered that all four there. Anything else we need to cover on this creative thing? I wanted to ask you, Bill, what about on a land contract? Who pays the tax? Not taxes. Who is actually say there is a loan, the interest? Who writes that off? Is that the
so you as the investor? Let's say you took subject to, right, and you're paying the seller's mortgage payment every month.
Yeah.
The seller's lender is going to send him a 1098 for the interest for the year, but the buyer you sold it to on land contract presumably wants to deduct the interest he paid to us
Yeah.
on Schedule A. So the rule is the person who owned the property and paid the payments is entitled to the deduction. So our end buyer on the land contract meets that criteria.
He does.
Right. So he gets deducted on Schedule A. He pays money to us, right? And that's income. However, we get an offset for the interest we paid on the seller's mortgage.
So that's offset. How about depreciation, Bill? Do we have to pass that on to the land contract owner too?
On a land contract, because it's a sale. It's not a lease. It's not a lease.
What do you mean?
It's not. If I took subject to property from Kris, and then the next day sold it on a land contract to, let's see, Joseph Boyle here on the notes here.
Yeah.
He could deduct as mortgage interest on his Schedule A personal return the payments he's making to me. Then I deduct as business interest the interest I'm paying on your loan. But you, even though you got the 1098 from the bank saying, here's your interest paid for the year, you have to ignore that. You can't take that deduction on Schedule A because you didn't A, pay it, and B, live there.
I understand that, but if I'm the seller, I can't depreciate it anymore either. I'm passing that on too.
No, there's no depreciation because even if it was a rental property, once he sold it, he sold it.
Well, I think our investors need to know that because you know how we get, Bill. We tugging around. I depreciate everything. I depreciate. Right. You know, it's like
that's sort of one of the leading factors when selling on a lease option is you get depreciation.
Yeah.
When the tenant exercises the option, you could do a 1031 exchange into something else.
Gotcha.
Whereas if you sell on a land contract, that's the sale, even though title didn't pass. And then 2 years later, the buyer wants to pay you off the balance. Can you roll the balance into a 1031? The answer is no. You've already sold it.
Gotcha. Deep stuff here. Creative financing. If it wasn't for that, I would not be living in my house. I'm thankful to have learned this stuff, not only from you and a bunch of guys, but not only a bunch of guys, but from you too, Bill, for you coming out and speaking to me about this stuff. Round up, get your questions answered by, I don't want to say, subject to, am I going to jail, Bill? I get so many emails. People say, it's legal.
There's no due on sale jail. A mortgage is a contract between a borrower and a lender. And that contract says, in the event that this borrower, i.e. seller, transfers the property, then the lender may, if they choose, accelerate the balance of the loan due. So it's not automatic. It's not even a due on sale clause. I don't know why they call it that. It's due on sale at the option of the lender. So in 99% of cases, what I've done over the last 30 years or more, the lender just takes the payment and they don't say anything because there's usually not a lot of equity and the incentive is not there for them to enforce that. The incentive would be there if, like in the 1970s and early 80s, when interest rates went up to 14% and the loan you took over was 4%, of course they weren't going to enforce that due on sale because they're losing 10 points in interest by money out there. They want to get it back so they can reloan it at 14%. Interest rates have been steady or falling for the last 10 or 15 years. And if you took over a 4% mortgage and interest rates in the market were 3.5%, why rock the boat?
Yeah, I leave that. That's sweet. Well, so all of this stuff. So tell us about your thing here, Bill. I know you're going to give us a discount on all your training, but this specific one, all this stuff is wrapped up in one or subject to lease option.
Well, I've got 4 courses. One is called Creative Real Estate Financing, which covers everything: lease options, subject to wraps, subordinate financing, buying and selling notes. I mean, there's a whole conglomerate of ways to buy and sell real estate creative. Then I have 3 niche courses, one on lease options, which just focuses totally on that. It's a little cheaper if that's your game you want to focus on. One on subject to, which is all about just that. And then a new course I just put together on Wraps called How to Create a Real Estate Cash Cow, which is just on Wraps. Now, if you wanted to buy just one course and get the best bang for your buck, creative real estate financing is it. If you just want to focus on subject to, get the subject to course. If you really want to enhance your knowledge, get all four, because we're going to offer a crazy discounted price of 50% off everything. Yep. And that's the best all-inclusive education on all this stuff.
I got to tell you, man, I remember when I was starting out, wholesaling only. It was like, first of all, I got sick of it. And then I'm like, I thought that was real. I thought that wholesaling was real estate. I'm like, I've arrived. Then I'm hanging out with some guys. I'm like, okay, let me think. That's when I realized I didn't know shit. It's like just wholesaling paper is like.
Well, you could wholesale these deals. So I could sign up a deal with Kris. It says, I agree to take his loan subject to, give him $5,000 at closing, and make up his 3 back payments and arrears on his mortgage. And then I can assign that contract to Jenny here, who attended my Cash Cow event and gives a nice thank you, Jenny. And assign that for $5 or $10,000 to another landlord or another investor who wants to acquire that under those terms.
Yeah, but Bill, in order for you to do that, you have to understand these tactics and these strategies before you can back somebody into them.
Understand it, engineer it, and explain it to the seller.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, brother, but I'm just like, I'm just speaking for me. Wholesaling was like, boo boo. I just thought that was it. So
mostly people think wholesaling is find a property under contract with a really low price, and then wholesale that to another investor for a little more, who's going to fix it and flip it to a retail buyer.
Yeah.
That's hard in this market.
Oh, man.
There's just not a lot of those properties with enough equity or enough spread to do that. Whereas wholesaling creative deals like a land contract, lease option, subject to, you can wholesale those all day long to other investors. And I think it's a lot easier to find those deals than it is to find the, needle in a haystack of a property listed on the MLS by a bank, REO that's got enough equity for a wholesaler and a retailer.
That's challenging. I mean, the market, it's just on fire. Bill, I didn't tell you, but we sold one the other day before we even listed. Wow. 30,000 more. I'm like, it's just going crazy.
Wow.
It's going crazy out here. Yeah. Well, round up, get your questions in for Bill, and you head over to the link in the video descriptions. There's 2 links you can get if you want to get all 50% off of all Bill's training. Use coupon code 2021. We want 2021 to be the best year for you. I'm looking so forward to this unknown in the real estate markets, Bill. You think? Do you think it's going to be a big crash, or do you think that they'll drip it out? What are you thinking?
I don't see a crash in 2021. Even if all these foreclosures happen, it's going to take a year for those things to cycle through the process because remember, even if they start foreclosures in February, they're backed up for 9 months. So so it's not going to be spring of 2022 before they start listing these properties back on the market for resale. So I think 2021 is the same. You're going to have a lot of people behind in payments. Pre-foreclosures are great. Subject twos, lease options, short sales, all good options in 2021. But inventory is still very low and demand is there. So prices are still going to go up.
I'm excited. Are you excited for this time?
I am. It reminds me a little bit of 2009, although I think it's going to be a better opportunity than 2009. 2009, you could pick up properties all day long, or in 2010, but you couldn't rent them. You couldn't sell them. There was no back-end market for them. I bought a bunch of properties in 2009 and 2010, but I was losing cash flow every month because I couldn't get the rents that were commensurate. But by 2012, it all turned around and, the rents went up significantly and I made out. I think in 2021, you could buy bargains on short sales or subject to pre-foreclosures and still make money on it now.
That is cool. Well, let's get some Q&A, Bill. You got time for that on this New Year's Eve day? You there, Bill?
I'm here.
You got time for a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
Joseph wants to know what is the difference between a wrap. Well, we've covered all that. I mean,
and a
and
subject
subject.
to. Right. We
Did you want
covered.
to?
Well, just basically, a wrap is a subject to. The difference being that the buyer gives the seller a lien against the property for performance of the payment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Ultimate Bargain says the agents want to see their fee, their commission on these deals. That's
Yeah.
true.
So let me give you an example.
Yeah.
I have a client who's a broker, and he calls all the listing brokers on properties advertised as short sales. And he says, well, what's it worth? What do they owe? And how many back payments are they behind?
Mhm.
So let's say they say the property's worth $350, they owe $340, they're $10,000 in arrears, but the interest rate is 3.4.
Sweet.
Now, the listing agents think a short sale is enough equity for the broker commissions. What my client does is says, I've got a buyer who's got 40 to put down, which is enough to cover the 10 in arrears, my fee, your fee, closing costs, and the buyer's overpaying a little, but they're getting into a house with no qualifying and a low interest rate.
That's value.
Win-win all around.
Value. That's the value.
Yeah.
Frankie buys houses. Nice name. When collecting a lease option down payment or fee, could you get tagged as a dealer if you deposit that into the same account as you collect the rents?
I don't think so. I don't think that one has anything to do with it. Being a real estate dealer has to do with your intent in going into the property, what you intend to do with it. If you intend to flip it, that's what a dealer is. So I don't think that the fact that you put the option money and the lease money in the same account has anything to do with anything.
Gotcha. Joseph wants to know, how do you decide whether to do a wrap or a subject to, Bill?
Good question. When buying, I'd say 90% of the time I do a subject to. If the seller is represented by an agent or broker, I might suggest a wrap because that's something that people are more familiar with. But if the seller's objection of me taking subject to is, well, how do I know you're going to make my payments and my credit's important and blah, 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 then I might switch to the land contract because it's easier to explain and the title stays in their name until I pay it off. So it makes them feel a little warm and fuzzy. Even though there are risks for me as a buyer on a land contract.
Yeah, I'm scared about that, Bill. They go out there, get $1 million IRS lien, then what?
Right. Well, that's the risk. So you make sure the seller is financially solvent, not filing bankruptcy anytime soon, but has a house they can't get rid of and don't want to make the payments on it.
That's sticky. I would not want to be in that situation, but we do what we have to.
Right.
Shoes to share. So what is the difference in taking a property subject to
in a deed of trust state versus a mortgage state? No
There
difference.
you go.
A security instrument is a lien against the property for collateral for a promissory note. There's two kinds of security instruments, mortgage or deed of trust. The only difference between those instruments is how they're foreclosed. In a mortgage state, you go through a lawsuit, and then they appoint a receiver to sell the property. In a deed of trust state, you go through a publication, and then a receiver is appointed, and you go through an auction. It's the same at the end. You're at auction. The only difference is how you get there legally. All right. So deed of trust states it's a little cheaper and quicker than in mortgage states.
Gotcha.
A lawsuit and lawsuits can be, can have a backed up civil court in New York County or LA County or something like that.
Joseph asks, is there less chance the loan gets called due from the due on sale if you do a wrap, Bill?
Well, no, because you're
Same
still
thing.
transferring the title subject to. Now, if you are buying or selling on a land contract and you don't record it, then yeah, the chances of them finding out are slim, but that has dangers too. So if I'm buying and I want to record that land contract in county records, if I do that, though, that could tip off the lender. When I'm selling on a land contract, I never record it. Never record it. Because if the buyer disappears, there's no title mess to clean up.
They're clouding your title.
Right. They're clouding your title.
How much is that going to cost one of my rounduppers to clean up a land contract that went bad that's recorded, Bill? That sounds nasty.
Depends what state you're in, but it could be anywhere from $3 to $7 grand in attorney's fees.
I can imagine. Yeah, nobody wants to mess with that stuff. I mean, you got a silent title. I mean, golly, that'd be nasty. I never even thought about that one, Bill. Recording a land contract and then the guy disappears or go bad.
Right.
Sorry about that noise. They're doing my water softener in here.
Sure.
Sorry, guys. Ultimate Bargains. This guy's sharp. Can you require escrow of the original wraparound note with the loan servicing company so you don't need to chase the note holder?
Very good. Very good.
Break that down. And Ultimate Bargains is like high level.
Typically, you give the note and the deed of trust or mortgage to the seller on a wrap because they're the quote lender.
Yep.
Can you have a third party hold those documents in escrow? So if the seller disappears, I can get them from the escrow company. Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Ultimate Bargains is super sharp. Joseph, we kind of touched that. What is the cons of the land contract? Did you want to hit that again, Bill? Or you're
right. So if you're buying, the con is something can happen to the seller's title in between when you sign the land contract and when he gives you title.
Not good.
Not good. The cons of a land contract when selling can be the uncertainty, depending on what state you're in, of how you get someone out. Because if you're in a state that doesn't have a forfeiture process, the court can make you do a judicial foreclosure even in the deed of trust state, which can be very long and expensive. Just a tip here for those people in California, common practice is, this is interesting. California is a deed of trust state. The deed of trust foreclosure is 75 days. A judicial foreclosure through the courts could be 9 to 12 months.
Good Lord.
So what they do, Stewart Title came up with this idea, and they do escrow for this. You do a regular land contract sale, and in escrow, there's a deed from the seller to the buyer and a deed of trust from the buyer back to the seller. So if the buyer defaults on the land contract, the escrow company records the deed going forward to the buyer and a lien back of a deed of trust, and then you go through a non-judicial foreclosure.
That sounds a little complicated. Good gracious. Got me spinning on that.
If it's done right, it'll avoid you a judicial foreclosure.
You definitely don't want to deal with that. At the end of the day, Joseph, just write a check. Go to the people.
If a buyer defaults, how much money to leave?
I promise you, it's going to be the cheapest money you ever spend, bro.
Absolutely.
Choose to share. Why not just put outline? Oh, let's talk about the HUD.
One outline. Yeah, lines 203 and 205 in the HUD says loans taken subject to. So it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't say loans assumed.
Yep. King Edward III, what do you think about a performance deed? I don't know what that is. What is that, Bill?
A performance deed would be a subject to where you record a deed of trust that says if the buyer doesn't perform, you could foreclose the property. That's what a wrap is.
Same thing.
Well, it's the same thing.
Gotcha. Joseph asked, what if the lease option buyer sues because they want their down payment back? I've had that.
Yeah, I've had that too. And they lose every time.
They lose
because my documents are crystal clear. Nonetheless, I have offered money when they file their answer in landlord-tenant court. Before we go in front of the judge, I've said, listen, you gave me $5 down, and you want $5 back. How about we call it $1,500, and you agree to be out by next Friday?
I like that, Bill.
That's a lot more.
That is sweet.
Yeah.
I've had my friend, the judge, didn't require him pay it back, but he made them zero. Both of them, nobody owed anybody anything, and they stayed for 6 months. Ultimate Bargains, what are the pros and cons of quitclaim deed versus warranty deed? Good question, man.
Well, when you're buying, you want to get a warranty deed if you can.
Why, Bill?
Well, because a warranty deed has a warranty of title. So if there's something wrong, like a spurious lien comes up, mechanic's lien or an unresolved old mortgage that was never released, the seller's responsibility is to fix it. Now, and the only way realistically they're going to fix it is if there's title insurance bought in the transaction, which is your deed pocket. You can't get an owner's policy on a quitclaim deed. The title company insists on a warranty. Okay.
Gotcha.
When you're selling, you could give a quitclaim deed. If you're selling on a land contract at the end, you can give them a quitclaim deed, or you can give them a special warranty deed, which is only covers warranty of things that happened while you owned it. So if the claim against the property originated prior to when you owned it, you're not responsible for that.
Special warranty deed. I try to use them when I can.
Yeah.
Hard to use them though with retail stuff.
Yeah, with an agent involved, they're going to want a warranty deed.
Yeah.
In general.
Bill, John Lewis, Bill, your land contract properties, do you collect payments or have a note servicing company facilitate? And also, do you escrow their taxes and insurance on the monthly payment?
Good question. So the first part is I collect my own. I don't use a servicing company on the ones I sell.
Now, give them a picture because I don't want them to think you're out there.
If I'm buying and there's a payment I'm making and I want to make sure it gets made to his mortgage company, I'm going to pay it to a third-party servicing agent who will pay directly to the seller's mortgage company. And then if there's anything left over, a check to the seller and give everybody statements every year. Okay, that's worth it. It's about $20-$30 a month. When I'm selling, it's easier for me to explain to a buyer, I'm selling owner carry, pay me. That's not unusual, right? So I don't bother with the servicing company. Now, how do I escrow their taxes and insurance? This is what I do. If the underlying loan on the property has an escrow impound for taxes and insurance monthly, then I just figure out on the statement how much that is and bill it to the buyer every month.
Add it over.
So I get collected from them. I pay the mortgage company with the total payment. They pay the county or the insurance company.
Gotcha. Roundup. We are with Bill Bronchick today. We're giving you his Wraparound documents and his land contract for free. That link is in the video description below, as well as Bill's New Year's special that he's given all of his training, especially the creative financing was what we're covering today, for half off, and that special is going to be in the video description as well. King Edward, what do you think the number one reason due on sale gets called? I don't even know they get called often, but go ahead, Bill. You know more than me.
I've seen it twice in 30 years. I mean, the way the bank finds out, there's three ways. The title transfer is public record, but they're not looking for it. They don't have spies down at the county, checking out deeds, and the guy gets on his shoe phone and says, "We got one," right? The second way is you're writing a check to the mortgage company that's not from the borrower, and that could be a tip-off. Not likely. Someone processing at a low level at a mortgage company like Wells Fargo, they're not going to notice that.
Heck no.
Yeah. The third one is the change of insurance. Now, when you change the property over from seller to buyer, the new insured is the buyer, you, and the bank gets a copy of that. And now they're tipped off in writing that something has changed with the ownership, and they could investigate it further. So in theory, that is the way they find out. But I've done that many, many times, and I haven't had a mortgage company make a stink.
Yeah, Charles King Edward, me neither. I'm like, at the worst case, let me ask Bill. My mentor said, Chris, at the worst case, if you don't put insurance on it, they'll put it on there, and then you just
then it ends up being an extra $300 a month because forced insurance is expensive.
It is high. But I mean, King, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It could be done. So, John, how do you manage the lienable utilities, sewer, and water if the land contract buyer isn't diligent with making the payments?
Right. That's a good point. So, municipal services like water and sewer become a lien on the property if they're not paid, regardless of who's the owner or renting it or whatever. They don't care. It is the responsibility of the buyer. And if he doesn't pay them, then it becomes a lien on the property if they skip on the contract. And now you're stuck with some liens for water and sewer. You can contact those authorities who supply water and sewer and ask to get a notice of any non-payment or balance. They'll send to you. So you can tell them, I have a tenant in there, even though he's a land contract buyer, and I want to be notified that if he doesn't pay the bill, I want to get notified so there's no lien on the property, and they'll do that.
Cool. Oh, Cash Cow Seminar. Nice, Luke Jim.
Thank you.
Tim Cross, Mr. Bill, if you're buying a free and clear property with owner financing with the intention to wrap it, do you disclose? Hold up. Can we?
I follow. So they're buying a property with seller financing from a free and clear owner.
But it says intention to wrap it. If you're gonna, there's nothing to wrap.
Now, well, you could wrap the mortgage loan between you and the seller that the seller's carrying.
It says it's free and clear, Bill.
Right. So it's free and clear, and the seller takes, let's say, 10% down and 90% note. You get title, the seller gets a mortgage against the property. Just straight owner carry, not a wrap.
Okay.
Then you sell it on a wrap. The question is, do you disclose to the seller who sold it to you on terms that you have the ability to wrap it on the back end?
When you sell it.
Right, when you resell it. So the answer is my documents are pretty clear that I'm an investor. I may rent it. I may resell it. I may flip it. I may, and it's up to me what I decide to do and make sure that the deed of trust or mortgage that I gave the seller on the buy side does not contain a due on sale.
Gotcha. So that's deep. You're going to wrap something with you're buying it with a note with the intent to wrap it. I guess that's that.
That's fine.
Tim, it was a nasty little booger there. K-Ron Page, what was the name of the wraparound only course? They don't see it, Bill.
It's not in my products page yet, but there's a direct link. I have.
You want to give me that, Bill, so I can get it to him?
Yeah, it's legalwiz.com/Cash Cow Seminar. Cash Cow Seminar.
We'll have to get it in so we can get the coupon on there.
I'll put it on the products page with a link to it. But basically, I recorded and provide all the materials to the Cash Cow workshop I did 3 weeks ago, which has wrap forms and calculators. One of the things I like is I have this cash calculator, Cash Cow calculator, not CALC, COW later. And what it does is it's a side-by-side spreadsheet that shows underlying loan on the left side, wrap loan on the right side, how much you paid, how much you collected, payment monthly going out, payment monthly coming in, and then a side-by-side amortization.
Sweet.
So at any time you could see if they pay me off here and I pay off the underlying, then my total return was 46%.
Cash Cow. So yeah, you got to give me that, Bill. If you give me that link, I can just put it in the video description too.
Can I do this, sir?
Yeah, put it on. If you put it, there's a private chat on the right. You can see. You can send it right to me.
Comments. Let's see. Private chat. There it is.
Because I got to go in and get. Is it on the Thrive card, Bill?
Well, it's set for the code to work for all courses.
Okay, cool. What we got here? Buyers. Buyers Ninja. When I buy subject to, then the property is sold in 3 years to my buyer. The service agent for the lender sends the escrow balance to the borrower. How do I get it? That's true.
That's a good one. It's Cash Cow course, actually, not Cash Cow seminar. Okay, let me put that in the link there and send it to you, and you can send it out. So the check is going to be made payable to the borrower for the extra escrow. At closing, we have the seller sign something that says they're waiving at escrow and it's ours. So if you get a power of attorney from the seller, you should be able to cash that check at your bank.
That's what I did, Bill.
Yeah. And
$2,000.
yeah. So if you go on, usually what we do is we go on the lender's website and you could log in and say, change my mailing address and change it to yours. So if they send the check, it'll be payable to the borrower at your address, take the power of attorney, and then endorse it and put it in your account.
Yep. Raheem, Bill, what market are you in?
Colorado. But I've invested in Florida, Arkansas, Indiana, Texas, Oklahoma, California, and New York.
You got a brother somewhere around there too, right?
Yeah, he's in Florida.
Robel wants to know, do you think creative financing will become saturated like wholesaling has?
Nope.
I don't think people are going to want to spend time on learning this stuff.
I think very few people will take the discipline and time to learn this stuff because it's admittedly more complex and advanced than simple wholesaling.
Wholesaling is the entry level start.
Yeah, it's simple. It's not hard to understand the concept. Buy low, sell high. Right? It's not that complicated. But there's so few of them.
I think, Bill, this stuff here, I just feel like it's like a world that you can live in, and it's like you can craft these things and make assets. You know, it's like art form. That does excite me. Deal making excites me.
Yeah.
Kathy, should you get title insurance when buying subject to?
That's a good question. Excellent question. Now, I own a title agency, 22 years in the business. Title insurance is the biggest scam going.
Why do you say?
Because it doesn't cover anything. It covers the buyer, first of all, not the seller. So if you buy it as a seller and the buyer has a claim, the title insurance company sues you for the claim after they pay it out. So if you buy title insurance, you're buying a lawsuit. That's the first thing. Second thing is you should do it if your risk is commensurate. So, for example, if Kris owned a property worth $200 and he owed $200 and I'm not giving him any money and I'm just taking subject to and I'm going to just rent it out, what do I have to lose if title's bad? Nothing. I didn't put up anything. But if I am putting 30 down, let's say, and then I plan on refinancing it or selling it on a wrap, and then a title problem comes up later, I want to be covered for that.
You're nasty.
Yeah.
We always get it, Kathy, 100%. And a lot of times people say, well, you can't get title insurance. You can on the subject too.
Yeah, you can.
How are we looking on time, Bill?
Fine.
Cool. New Year's Eve.
It's not midnight yet.
But Tim wants to know, if selling on a land contract, will the new owner be able to build on that land without my involvement? Wow.
Good question. I have a provision in my contract when selling raw land that says they have to get permission of the seller to pull any permits, because the permit has to be pulled in the title owner's name. They can't pull up a building permit without me. But my consent shall not be unreasonably withheld.
Gotcha. Good question. Trevor, hey Trevor, I'm in Florida. Can you tell me what the cost of doing foreclosures and also the best way to take over strategy? Could you recommend an attorney?
My brother Ken Bronchick is at experttitlecompany.com. He's in Boca, or maybe no, he's not actually in Boca. He's in Boca area, South Florida. Sharp guy, does a lot of closings, and the cost of doing a foreclosure varies in Florida depending on which county you're in and the backlog of cases. So in the more crowded counties like Palm Beach or what's the other one there? Palm Beach and Broward. Those are going to be expensive because they're busy. Mm. Whereas Jacksonville might be a lot cheaper, or Daytona Beach.
Gotcha. Okay, Roundup. Make sure you head over to the links in the video description to get Bill's stuff, some of his docs and training for free. And if you want the full detailed stuff, there's use the coupon code 2021 for half price all bill stuff, including the subject to stuff. We did that. Ultimate bargains. When you do cash for keys, Bill, do you require the occupant sign a surrender of possession to prove that they left willingly?
Right. So what I do is I make a deal with the buyer, and I have them sign a surrender of possession, which is I'm giving up possession as of this date. In exchange for, and they're waiving any rights to the property in exchange for, one, me letting them out of the agreement, two, me giving them some cash, and three, me waiving back payments. So there's got to be consideration. And we state it right on there. I don't give them any money at that point. I say, you're going to be out by next Friday. I want the place broom clean, no crap left behind. Hand me the keys, and then I will give you the cash.
Gotcha. You don't give them the stuff until they're out.
Because that's the biggest problem. I don't know about you, but leaving stuff behind, like furniture and stuff that you need to roll off, and it costs a lot of money to get rid of a bunch of stuff.
Broom swept clean, please.
Broom clean.
I got to tell you that for me that differs though. You buying a foreclosure with a squatter, you got to do what the hell you got to do. Get them out.
Right.
Dutchman Realty. Can you talk about the ins and outs of joint venture or partners?
Well, gee, that's a long discussion, but I'll give you the highlights. First, you want to look at what's more efficient, a partner or someone to lend you money. If you need money. If you need expertise, is it cheaper to hire it than to bring on a partner who has the expertise?
Okay.
So if you decide that you're going to bring on a partner for those things, and it's not easier to borrow money or hire someone to walk you through the deal, then you want to make sure it's someone you're compatible with, that understands the game and understands that there can't be too many cooks in the kitchen. Somebody's going to be responsible for X and somebody's responsible for Y, and not to cross over and have them torture you every week about the property and what you're doing and the decisions you're making and so forth.
Gotcha. T-Vision, is this a new program, Bill, or is this is your standard program that you've had, correct?
Yeah, I haven't changed anything the last year. The cash cow course is brand new.
Day. My estimated property taxes on my subject to did not cover the amount for the year. Oh boy. So my payment went up $100. I sold it on a land contract. How do I tell the tenant they will have to cover that?
Well, your land contract with the buyer should say that the buyer pays property taxes, whatever they may be. If it says that, then you say, hey, your property taxes are going up, which they should expect as an owner of a property.
Yeah, but they ain't going to be happy about that, Bill.
Well, that's what you get when you buy a property. You get the property tax, whatever it is. Now, if the agreement doesn't say anything about that and their expectation is it's going to remain the same, that's a problem.
Buyer's Ninja wants to know your brother's info again, Bill.
Oh, yeah. It's experttitlecompany.com.
Look at that, getting referrals right here on the channel. Justin Fats, how has COVID affected subject to deals, Bill?
Well, the mortgage has become infected. And no, I'm just kidding.
They don't got to pay them.
There are going to be more of them because there's so many people on the deferment payments right now who are going to have to at some point come up with 10 months of payments. And they're not going to be able to. So you're going to come in and see if there's enough equity that you could take subject to that mortgage, make that back up the payments, and pay it going forward.
I think it has affected it, Justin. I've had deals where I'm getting ready to sign the deal, and the guy's like, hey, the bank, I don't got to make my payment, so I'm going to hold tight.
There are people who are going to stay in and milk it.
You daggone right.
Last day.
I need my stimulus. Round up Bill Bronchick. New Year's Eve special. All questions answered. Thank you so much, Bill. This has been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure to speak to your Roundup group. Always good questions, good feedback.
Final thoughts of anybody getting started in 2021, Bill?
Knowledge is power. Wholesaling, every knucklehead knows how to do. Fix and flip, every knucklehead at least thinks they know what to do. This stuff is very, very a niche thing that so few people know and employ, that if you get your head around the details of this stuff, you're going to find there's a lot more sellers and buyers out there, more than you need.
Ron says 75% of buyers can't qualify. Is that what you run into also?
And more after COVID, because a lot of people lost their job temporarily, had late credit card payments or car payments. Now we're creating a whole new market of unfinanceable buyers, at least by banks, that we're going to sell to on Wraps.
Yep. Okay, guys, make sure you head on over to the link in the video description. Subscribe to the channel, like the content. Bill, you got a few seconds you can do that testimonial for me?
Absolutely.
Round up. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. I wish you nothing but the best as these guys are destroying my wall, no doubt. I don't know what the hell they're. Can you hear this shit?
I can hear that.
Round up, like the content, share with any other investors that are getting into business. Creative financing, I promise you, if it wasn't for that, I think about when I come home all the time, I'm like, man, I would not have been able to buy this house unless I had the smarts to do it. How many people have looked at deals? And I want to ask Bill, they'll say, well, the realtor looked at it, had the other investors look at it, they couldn't do anything. But you can look at it too. Next thing you know, you're in there like, well, what if we did this? Boom, 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 boom.
Right. You never know what you get until you ask. My mother told me that.
Yeah, that's where that creative stuff comes in. It will save your butt, y'all. I'm telling you. Okay, round up. Happy New Year. See you next year. Peace.